I had always been a rule follower. My name's Emily Carter, born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. I grew up in a suburban neighborhood where everyone waved when they passed your house and knew your dog's name better than your middle name. I married young, just 22, straight out of college. My husband, Jason Carter, was my high school sweetheart, and we were the kind of couple people described as picture perfect. We lived in a cozy house on Meadowlark Drive with a wraparound porch and wind chimes that tinkled just right during thunderstorms. Jason was an accountant, methodical, predictable, solid, and I worked as an event coordinator for a local hotel. We weren't flashy or particularly adventurous, but we were happy. Or at least we used to be. Our routine had become so fixed it felt like muscle memory. Wake up, make coffee, drive to work, dinner at 6, TV at 7, sleep by 10. Repeat. It wasn't a bad life. It was just quiet. Too quiet. Something inside me began to itch, a feeling I couldn't name, but also couldn't ignore. And then came the blackout. It was a late Friday afternoon in October when the power went out. The whole street, then the whole town. The wind had been howling all day, and when the transformers finally blew, it left us in complete darkness. No cell towers, no streetlights, not even a hum from the refrigerator. Just stillness. Jason had left earlier that morning for a weekend accounting conference in Indianapolis. I was alone in the house, trying to read by candlelight when the knock came at the door. It startled me. No one usually visited without texting first, and especially not in the dark. I peeked out the window. It was Ryan Harper, our neighbor 2 houses down. Ryan had moved in about 6 months earlier. Early 30s, tall, athletic, and a former EMT turned personal trainer. There was something rugged about him, the kind of quiet confidence that made you curious. He and Jason got along just fine, but there was always a subtle awkwardness between Ryan and me. It wasn't anything anyone would notice. Just an extra beat too long during eye contact. A hesitated smile. That sort of thing. "Hey," he said when I opened the door. "You all right?" I nodded. "Yeah, just trying to get through the blackout." He held up a lantern. "I've got a generator running and figured I'd check if you needed anything. I've got heat and a couple of cold drinks if you're interested." It was tempting. The temperature had dropped dramatically, and my house felt like an icebox. I hesitated. A married woman, alone, going to a single man's house in the dark. But it wasn't like that, was it? I forced a smile. "Sure. I could use some warmth." The moment I stepped into Ryan's home, I noticed how different it felt from ours. There was music playing softly from a Bluetooth speaker connected to a portable charger, the scent of cedarwood candles flickering in glass jars. He had laid out a couple of fleece blankets and even had a tray of snacks, cheese, crackers, and fruit. "Trying to make the blackout feel less apocalyptic," he joked. I laughed, settling onto the couch. "Well, you're doing a good job." We talked for hours. About everything. About nothing. It was strange how easy it felt. With Jason, everything had become about responsibilities, bills, scheduling, and routine. But here, in this candlelit room with a man I barely knew, I felt seen. I felt alive. At some point, we ran out of wine. He poured us bourbon instead, and I didn't say no. The warmth of the drink spread through me like fire, and the edges of the night began to blur. I wasn't drunk, but I wasn't completely clear-headed either. Then came the silence. Not uncomfortable, but heavy. He looked at me, and I looked back. And there it was again, that unspoken question lingering in the air. I should have said something. Should have excused myself. Should have remembered the wedding band still wrapped around my finger. But I didn't. When the lights went out, I crossed the line. It started with a brush of his fingers against mine when I reached for the glass. Then a pause. A glance. And then he leaned in. Our lips met like a whisper, uncertain but undeniable. I could have stopped it. Should have. But something inside me, something wild and long buried, rose up and silenced all reason. It wasn't passion like in the movies. It wasn't fire and frenzy. It was quiet, dangerous in its subtlety. His hands touched my face like he was memorizing it, and when I kissed him back, I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I was only thinking about how much I'd missed being wanted. We didn't go further. Not that night. I left after an hour, heart pounding, guilt crashing over me like a storm. I barely slept. I kept replaying it over and over, trying to decide if I had truly done something unforgivable or if it was just a moment, an accident. Jason came back Sunday night. I tried to act normal, asked about the conference, listened to his stories about spreadsheets and hotel food. He didn't notice anything different, at least not right away. But something inside me had shifted. Over the next few weeks, I avoided Ryan. I didn't wave when I saw him taking out the trash. I didn't walk the dog past his house. I even ignored a couple of texts he sent asking if we could talk. I thought maybe if I just cut him out, it would all fade. But guilt has a way of growing louder in silence. It wasn't until Thanksgiving that everything came crashing down. Jason and I hosted dinner, and as fate would have it, we invited a few neighbors, Ryan included. It was supposed to be harmless, polite, just a gathering. But when I opened the door and saw him standing there with a bottle of wine and that same unreadable expression, my stomach flipped. Dinner was awkward, at least for me. Jason chatted with Ryan like nothing had ever happened, and I found myself excusing myself from the table again and again, just to breathe. Then came dessert. I was in the kitchen slicing pie when Ryan walked in. Alone. "We need to talk," he said, keeping his voice low. "Not now," I whispered. "Please." He looked pained. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. But I can't stop thinking about you." My hands froze. "Don't say that. You don't get to say that." But it's the truth. We didn't hear Jason come in, but he had. I turned around and there he was, silent, staring, the expression on his face a mixture of confusion and betrayal. "What's going on?" he asked, voice tight. I couldn't lie. Not anymore. The weight of it all had become too much. I took a deep breath and said, "Jason, I made a mistake. The night of the blackout." His eyes flicked between Ryan and me, realization setting in. "You kissed him," he said flatly. I nodded. "Yes. Just that. And I regret it. Every day." Jason didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. He just walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs. Ryan left without a word. That night, I slept on the couch. Jason didn't come down the next morning. Or the next. When we finally spoke, it was quiet, restrained, but the damage was done. Trust, once broken, doesn't repair itself overnight. We went to counseling. We tried. For months, we tried. Some days felt like progress. Others felt like punishment. But in the end, Jason couldn't forget. And I couldn't unlive what had happened. We separated the following spring. It wasn't just about the kiss. It was about everything that led to it. The emptiness, the boredom, the slow unraveling of a marriage that neither of us had noticed until it was too late. As for Ryan, he moved away not long after. I never saw him again.